Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to unpack the totally fascinating biological and anthropological reasons why some teams can literally survive life or death situations together, while others, well, they just completely fall apart over petty office politics. Our core focus today? Uncovering exactly how culture creates safe teams. Because, as we're about to see, putting people first isn't just some nice, fluffy idea. It is a biological imperative for success. You know, it's a question literally every manager, CEO, and team member has asked at some point, right? Why do some groups operate with this amazing total synergy, while others are just bogged down by backstabbing and paranoia? To really get to the bottom of this, we kind of need to step outside the corporate boardroom for a second. We need to start with a truly harrowing true story from August 16th, 2002, set deep in the treacherous mountains of Afghanistan. Imagine this. The setting is a pitch-black valley. There's a thick layer of clouds completely blocking out the stars and the moon. Down below, a team of 22 Special Operations Forces is trapped. They are pinned down under massive enemy fire. Bullets and rockets are just raining down from both sides of the valley, lighting up the pitch black with tracer fire. In absolute desperation, these men sent out the one terrifying radio call that nobody ever wants to hear. Troops in contact. Now, meanwhile, thousands of feet above those thick clouds, up in the safe, peaceful cocoon of his cockpit, was Captain Mike Drowley, better known by his call sign, Johnny Bravo. He was piloting an A-10 Warthog, which is this massively heavily armored attack aircraft. Hearing that distress call come up from beneath the clouds, Johnny Bravo knew he couldn't just circle around and wait. No way. He made the split-second decision to execute a seriously treacherous weather letdown, meaning he was flying blind right into the dark, mountainous unknown, just to protect those men on the ground. He was literally flying into this valley using old Soviet maps and with barely any visibility, counting out loud just to avoid crashing into the mountain walls. He later explained his mindset during all this with a really powerful thought. He said, "There are fates worse than death. One fate worse than death is accidentally killing your own men. Another fate worse than death is going home alive when 22 others don't." Risking his own life, he and his wingman laid down massive, incredibly precise fire, and they went around again and again until they saved all 22 men on the ground. Not a single American casualty. So, when he was later asked what on earth gave him the courage to fly into that terrifying darkness, Johnny Bravo didn't cite his intensive military training. He didn't cite his advanced aircraft technology either. He cited pure empathy. He just said he did it because they would have done it for me. That absolute certainty, knowing for a fact that his team had his back, is the ultimate hallmark of how culture creates safe teams. Okay, let's quickly run through today's agenda. First up, empathy under fire. Then, the circle of safety, the biology of trust, employees are people too, and finally, we'll wrap up with the true cost of leadership. All right, moving right into section 2, the circle of safety, protecting the in-group. Look, we all face constant dangers from the outside world, right? Whether that's a shifting economy, aggressive competitors, or disruptive new technologies. But what happens when we also have to face internal dangers? It actually reminds me of this ancient fable from Aesop. Picture 4 oxen standing tail to tail in a field. Whenever a lion approaches, it's met by a solid wall of horns. They're safe. But the very moment those oxen start quarreling and walk off to their own separate corners, the lion just picks them off, one by one. The lesson here is simple but absolutely profound. When we turn on each other internally, we are quickly eaten by the external threats. And that brings us to a formal definition. The circle of safety is basically a workplace culture based on clear human values, trust, and empathy. This is exactly how culture creates safe teams. When leaders actively build this kind of environment, employees don't have to waste their valuable time and mental energy protecting themselves from, toxic office politics, arbitrary layoffs, or backstabbing. Instead, they can pool all their collective energy together to face those constant dangers on the outside. But here's the crazy part. This isn't just some psychological theory. It's actually hardwired right into our bodies. Which brings us to section 3, the biology of trust, understanding our internal chemical drivers. It turns out our bodies physically and chemically react to our work environments. It's fascinating. When we feel unsafe at work, like when we're terrified for our jobs or our status, our brains release a heavy dose of cortisol. Now, cortisol is the stress hormone designed to keep us alive. It drives anxiety, paranoia, and deep
deep self-preservation. But in a safe environment, our bodies release oxytocin and serotonin. These are the chemicals of trust, belonging, and cooperation. They're what make us feel valued and actually inspire us to look out for one another.
And here's the absolutely crucial biological point. Cortisol literally inhibits the release of oxytocin. Think about that. It means it is biologically impossible to feel empathy and trust when you are constantly stressed and fearful for your survival. A toxic workplace doesn't just make us, unhappy. It biologically forces us to be more selfish and much less empathetic. Bottom line, if leaders want real collaboration, they have to completely eliminate that cortisol-inducing fear from the environment. All right, let's jump to section 4. Employees are people too, bringing theory into corporate reality. Let's see how this actually plays out in a real-life corporate environment. When CEO Bob Chapman took over a manufacturing company called Hasten Sandiacre, he noticed this massive, totally toxic cultural divide. It was honestly like a tale of two completely different companies. On one hand, factory workers were treated with deep suspicion. They were forced to punch time clocks and had to wait for these loud, obnoxious bells to tell them when they were allowed to eat or even rest. Meanwhile, the office workers, who walked through the exact same doors, were trusted to manage their own time, take breaks whenever they needed to, and make phone calls. The factory workers felt like they were just mere machinery, not actual human beings. Chapman knew that he had to extend trust if he wanted to earn trust, so he made some immediate physical changes to the environment. He actually went in and removed the belts. He even removed the literal chain link padlocks on the spare parts cages. Because think about it, locks basically imply that your employees are thieves. He installed free-to-use company phones for everyone, and he completely eliminated those double standards between the factory floor and the office. He just started treating everyone like responsible adults. And the result? Honestly, it was staggering. Because Chapman prioritized human beings over mere numbers, the culture shifted immediately. Employees actually started looking out for each other. Get this, machinery breakdowns actually decreased simply because workers cared more about the equipment they were using. And the company's revenue? It absolutely skyrocketed, going from $55 million to $95 million. And they did all of that without needing a single high-priced management consultant. By just making the environment safe, the people naturally pulled together to grow the business. Let's look at another really amazing example. CEO Charlie Kim noticed that as the end of the fiscal year was approaching at his tech company NextJump, his employees were just getting flooded with cortisol. The fear of end-of-year layoffs was palpable in the office, and it was completely stunting innovation. So Kim made a Super Bowl move. He instituted a lifetime employment policy. Basically, he took the threat of losing their livelihood completely off the table. Kim actually arrived at this decision by comparing leadership to parenting. As he put it, if your child comes home with bad grades, you don't fire them. You help them, right? You coach them. And guess what happened? Once that fear of being fired for a mistake was completely gone, his team's communication and overall performance actually improved. People started admitting their mistakes early on, they shared information way more freely, and they started innovating without that paralyzing fear of failure. Okay, moving to our final section, section 5, the true cost of leadership, the ultimate mandate for leaders. So we've seen how biology dictates success, but what does all of this actually require from the person in charge? I want you to think about this concept for a second. Every single employee is someone's son or daughter. When parents send their kids out into the workforce, they're essentially handing them over to a company. So letting someone into an organization is kind of like adopting a child into your family. It is a leader's profound responsibility to care for those precious lives just as a devoted parent would. You aren't just managing resources here. You are protecting human beings. This exact philosophy is the bedrock of the United States Marine Corps. If you ever watch Marines gather to eat, you'll notice something really specific. The most junior personnel are served first, and the most senior officers are served last. Now, it's not some rule written in a manual somewhere. It's a deeply ingrained culture. When it matters, leaders choose to eat last. True leaders eschew the spotlight. They provide cover from above, just like Johnny Bravo and his A-10 Warthog, so their people can safely execute their jobs and protect each other on the ground. As we wrap up today's explainer, I think it's pretty clear that a great workplace isn't just about, ping pong tables or free lunches. It's really about how culture creates safe teams. It's about creating that circle of safety where people feel genuinely protected, where the oxytocin flows, and where teams pull together to face the lions on the outside. So, I'll leave you with this final provocative thought to consider the next time you walk into your workplace. Are you the leader you wish you had?